now that I talked about my hype for Destiny 2 Beyond Light, let's talk about some concerns. One of the concerns that I mainly am having is definitely tied to the gameplay loop that we focus after we beat the story. Mostly 90% of the time that we're playing Destiny is this, where we're going out and grinding whatever activities that are a loop of the weekly reset or a loop to do every single day. One of the things that I'm concerned about is the fact that it seems I'm a little bit confused on what is being supplied to ensure that the grind feels very fresh this time. I mean, it doesn't seem like we're getting a new activity outside the new raid when it comes to the gameplay loop. We have a new strike, but I didn't really see that we're getting any new PvP maps, and if so, how many? And Gambit, I don't think we're getting any new maps. And PvP's not getting any new modes, it seems. And we're not seeing any updates to strikes to make them a little bit more exciting, which I'll go into in its own topic in this video later on. But no activity, like a Vex offensive kind of thing, it seems, as of right now. I could be wrong when the new season starts. They could do something, of course. But when Shadowkeep came out, we had the Altars of Sorrow be introduced. We had the dungeon later on, of course. We had the Nightmare Hunts to repeat. So there was a decent amount, and I'm wondering if Europa will probably introduce something along this lines. I'm hoping so, but we'll have to see, I guess. But when it comes to Destiny 2 and its gameplay loop, the biggest importance should not be about power level, because I said this in my power leveling video, where Bungie's artificial way of getting you to play activities is a numbered item that will bring up your power level, and that's really it. You don't really care about the loot that you're getting as long as it's a item that will bring up your light level. That's one of the things I'm concerned about is, what are we getting? Are we getting a whole new mess of weapons and armor for pretty much anywhere and everywhere that's inside the game? Or is it strictly just armor for the vendors, and we're not really going to see a lot of new weapons tied to Gambit, Crucible, and the Vanguard right away? And I mean new weapons. The next thing I definitely want to talk about is tied to sunsetting in general. This is going to be a big one, but I'm going to kind of dissect it piece by piece. But one of the things that I already was really upset about was the reintroducing of quote-unquote sunsetted weapons as new weapons. When it came to Iron Banner, they updated the icon of said weapons that we already grinded for, but if I were to take out my Swarm of the Raven from the vault that I used so many tokens to farm to get the God Roll of, it's not equivalent to the one that you get that you turn in tokens for the Season of Arrivals. You will have the one that's in your vault sunsetted and not usable for the new expansion, while the new one has a brand new whole year to be used till it's sunset again. Basically what I'm saying is, if I see a Spare Rations 2.0 with nothing really big to make it different, I'm going to be kind of disappointed. Now, I understand that Bungie doesn't have the power to develop 100 unique weapons every single year, but I really don't want to see a Spare Rations reintroduced. If anything, I'm fine with the stats being slightly the same and having new roles, but make a new design for it. Make a reason why it's something slightly not exactly Spare Rations 2.0. Then maybe I'd be a little bit fine, but still, sunsetting should be more focused on than making brand new weapons. I don't know. That's kind of why I was not really for the whole sunsetting, because it's just, I feel like it makes a lot of things a little bit confusing, but I understand why they're doing it, so then there's not power creep, and where you just use Recluse for the rest of your life, and they can't really do anything that would be equally or better than Recluse, because then you would have to do something equally or better than that as well, over and over. So make things broken, make it more fun, and focus on that, because, well, if it is, it's going to be sunset in a year anyways. Now, when it comes to sunsetting as well, one of the things I'm very concerned about is actually our builds for Grandmasters and endgame content. I mean, look at bows, for example, in the collections. If you need a void bow for like a Nightfall, and that's the only one that does Unstoppables, for example, you're screwed. And maybe it might not be the archetype of bow that you like. There's hand cannons that are rapid fire, where there's precision, there's so on and so forth. There's many different types of archetypes to every single weapon. One of the things that I feel like Bungie really didn't do was kind of think about how many things would be affected when sunsetting is being implemented. I mean, when you take a step back and say, we're removing the infinite use of weapons, normally you have to take a step back and bring something back into the game that made sense to where it didn't really ruin a lot of your loadouts to be used for Nightfalls or so on. One of the greatest examples is changing the burn through materials of your weapons that are in the energy slot or heavy slot if they're a legendary weapon. That was one thing that I feel like would fix this problem a little bit, but sadly, I don't think they are going to be doing that. I don't know if this is something that really is a big concern, because we'll work around it, but I'm wondering if it will be a problem over time where people are like, yeah, I'm really annoyed that I don't have this many stasis weapons to rely on of every single archetype, and same thing with Solar and Void and whatever that isn't expired, that isn't sunset. Now, the next thing that I'm actually concerned about, I'm surprised that not many people are talking about. Granted, I know this is Destiny, and RNG is a big thing, but I'm talking about bad RNG in this concern. I'm not talking about the good RNG where you're doing an endgame activity and an exotic is very rare to get or something, like Anarchy, the way that was or something. I'm talking about the bad RNG. A good example of bad RNG is like Iron Banner in Season of Arrivals. I mean, if you were trying to get the auto rifle, and I mean really just the auto rifle and nothing else, good luck, because you're playing variables of RNG for not just the weapon, but you're also playing RNG on the rolls. What I mean by that is that, obviously, if you turn in tokens to Lord Saladin, you're going to probably get the grenade launcher, an armor piece, a sidearm, a sniper, you get the point, and then after that, you're playing RNG on the weapons themselves as well. Sunsetting causes this to be a big issue, because if you only have a year of enjoyment of the weapon when it's first introduced, and I mean first introduced, that means if the weapon has been around since day one of Beyond Light, if you get it in the summer of the period of time before the next expansion, doesn't matter, it's going to expire within a few months. That kind of sucks, especially if you're putting in a lot of effort into so-and-so mode, and you're getting screwed by too many variables of RNG that just don't really fit well. I'm not expecting Bungie to make bad RNG fixed for everywhere, but I'm more aligned saying that if an activity requires you to have a lot of time and effort into it, and on top of this can only do it a certain amount of times, aka like a raid or like going flawless for trials, putting in a lot of effort and stuff, maybe squeeze in that RNG where it's more compacted on what you're going to probably get. Does this mean, say, oh, they should have static rolls of one said weapon and that's it inside of raids? No! If anything, I gave a great example with Garden of Salvation, where I said that wouldn't it be cool if instead of having pretty much hundreds of different variations of so-and-so weapon, why not have static rolls of up to 5 to 10 of each type of weapon? So then there's a reason to still replay the activity, but at the same time, you're not getting completely screwed on giving up because of just RNG. And I mean bad RNG. I mean, I went through so many Umbral engrams just to try and get the roll, not even the God roll, where every roll is exactly perfect, just the 2 rolls at the end that I want for the Seraph SMG. I went through like hundreds of umbrals, I'm not even joking, to try and get the weapon, and it was so annoying. But that's how Destiny is sometimes. I'm not saying, again, that everything needs to be, oh, well, you got it now. I'm talking more lines of if the activity requires a lot more effort and is, more time consuming, or you have a limit to do that activity, condense it a bit more. Because sunsetting is taking a step back. I feel like people are not really going to be complaining about this because, number one, maybe they have really good luck and they're going to get the thing right away, or two, because they're not really going to notice it until within this new expansion and see that things get sunset within a year. I don't know. But that is definitely one of the things I'm definitely saying that maybe we should look into making RNG a little bit better. Because I'm looking at those Trials Adept weapons, and I already tried getting the Summoner at least like 100 or like 50 times through tokens and also wins and flawlesses and such. And I still keep getting Underdog. So I'm not going to be a happy camper going flawless to get an Underdog Summoner that I do not want. No thanks. But I'll talk more about that in a separate video. The next concern that I have is actually tied to strikes. I talked about this slightly in the beginning of the video, but strikes, I feel like, are not getting an overhaul. And I mean a slight overhaul. One of the things I talked about many times before is that strikes are not as exciting due to the fact that modifiers are just way too wimpy in the playlist, and also the loot that you get from the strikes are just not worthwhile. What happened to strike exclusives? I don't know where that's going to ever be implemented, but I feel like that should have been a focus since they're removing strikes and only adding a few new ones or one new one to this new expansion. Have a new weapon or armor piece per strike that you can chance on getting through the strike playlist. It would give you a good reason to play that activity and grind it. Plus modifiers. What is going on with that? The way modifiers work in Destiny 2 versus Destiny 1 makes me very sad. I played Destiny 1 recently, and I loved playing through the strike playlist, realizing that burns were burns in Destiny 1, and not singes like in Destiny 2. That means if you did the Omnigul strike, no matter what power level you were, you're going to get completely destroyed by arc damage if you are getting hit by it, and it's arc burn. And when it came to certain buffs to our character, which a burn was essentially a debuff and buff for us, depending on how you looked at it. But then we would have a buff like Small Arms or Specialist, which allowed us to do extra damage to our favorite weapons that we decide to use that go hand to hand to the modifiers. I mean, if it was Arc Burn and it was Small Arms, what are you going to use? Zalo Supercell, I'm pretty sure, during the time when Taken King came out. I miss those days. Now the only buff that I look forward to seeing is Heavyweight, and that's it. And I'm not expecting for the strike playlist to be super easy, but come on. Can we add some level of difficulty? When they nerfed Blackout, I was disappointed. I remember doing Lake of Shadows and laughing my butt off watching my friends get killed or me get killed by the boopy walls because Blackout worked with the boopy walls and it did a ton of damage. I thought that was what the strike playlist was supposed to be. But instead, it's just a, here, just do this if you want to kind of thing. And that sucks. I feel like strike playlist should be a staple activity like Crucible that you want to play over and over again and feel a lot of depth to it. And I feel like Crucible and Gambit could get some depth to where there's a reason to return to it other than just adding new maps or modes. But, I mean, I'm just saying strictly for strikes, come on. That's one of the concerns I've been having for a while now, because I enjoy strikes, but I feel like I would enjoy strikes a whole lot more if they were to understand that Destiny is not just a chore, but rather a video game as well. Have some fun with it. I mean, I have some great ideas of things I want to talk about in separate videos to answer to a lot of these concerns, but I'll do those at a later date. A hint I will give you is looking at Patrol as a great example of something that they can do some big changes to. But when it comes to concerns, those are kind of like the main things that I'm mainly concerned about. Of course, I could be concerned about power leveling and how annoying that's going to be once again with the new seasonal format. And I could be concerned that the new seasonal format is going to be kind of meh. But at the same time, I'm not really concerned about those things because, well, I mean, we'll have to see with the Beyond Light release first to see what they're doing with this new season. And then, of course, the next season coming forward, that will lead into the plotline of Savathun's expansion, which I feel like that's a better idea for the seasonal format this time around, where it's like they said in the vidoc, the dominoes of Savathun putting them down. So that's my main concerns that I can really think of at the top of my head. I want to know your thoughts on a lot of these things. If you think that I'm being ridiculous on any of these things, explain why. But if you have any concerns that you want to add into this, let me know in the comments below as well. But either way, I know I sound complaining in this video, but that's because I separated my hype with my concerns. I am genuinely excited about Beyond Light, and these concerns are not going to ruin that. They'll ruin it after. I'm kidding. But either way, thank you so much for listening. I hope to see you there for the Beyond Light grind, and I will be streaming it, of course, at my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/chibirobo1. So if you want to stop by and at least say hi during the grind, you should do so, because it'll mean a lot. So either way, thank you so much for listening. You all have a chibi-tastic day, night, evening, wherever you are. And I'll see you in the next video. Chibi out.